Well, loose lips sink ambassadors, and Justin Trudeau finally fired his hand-picked ambassador to China, John McCallum, after a series of stunning public missteps. First, there was McCallum's shocking press conference with Chinese media, where he outlined how the Huawei CFO, now detained in Vancouver, might avoid extradition to the U.S., saying if she was extradited, it would, quote, not be a happy outcome. Within days, McCallum issued a desperate apology, saying, quote, these comments do not accurately represent my position on this issue. As the government has consistently made clear, there's been no political involvement in the process. But then, shockingly, he repeated his offside remarks to the Star Metro in Vancouver, and that was it. Trudeau demanded his resignation. But what does it all say about the government's China strategy? Why wasn't Ambassador McCallum removed days earlier? Let's bring in MPs to find out. Coming to us from Toronto is Liberal MP Marco Mendicino, and with me here in studio is the Conservative immigration critic, Michelle Rempel. Good morning to both of you. Mr. Mendicino, your government was defending Ambassador McCallum as late as Friday. Why was he fired?
Well, let me begin by saying that I know John McCallum, and like most who've encountered him, hold him in high regard. I think his career in public service will stand the tests of time. Look, over the last number of days, John made a number of statements which were both unhelpful and did not reflect the position of the government. That's why the Prime Minister asked for his resignation. The opposition are going to try and play politics with this. They'll never turn down an opportunity to do so. Our government's top priority remains to secure the release of Mr. Kovrig and Mr. Spavor. And I would just add to that we have successfully shored up support from around the world. The reason why we've got countries like the United States, the United Kingdom, and Australia coming on board is that they know we honor our treaties. They know that we share values when it comes to the rule of law, and that's why they've joined Canada in asking for the release of these two individuals who've been arbitrarily detained.
All right. Well, clearly it's not going so well because you fired your ambassador to China, and what about playing politics with that? Michelle Rempel, what does it tell you that they finally let John McCallum go?
When I heard that, it was like reading the fine print on a box of medication or something, right? These are some really scripted talking points because this is a disaster with some serious consequences. When I think about the lives of Canadians that are being detained in China right now, this has very serious implications for them. It has serious implications for our relationship with the United States. And this is a disaster. I mean, I have had interactions with MPs as late as Friday where they said it was reckless to question this. And this is a disaster. McCallum was speaking on behalf of the government because he is our ambassador. This was, a very poor appointment. The fact that the government didn't terminate his position in the first instance is a disaster. It's a joke, and here we are. How did they let this happen?
Well, let's find out. Mr. Mendicino, did your government give Ambassador McCallum the green light to hold that press conference first in Toronto with Chinese media? Just answer. Did he get the green light? Was that a government-sanctioned event and that he just screwed up, or was that part of a government-sanctioned event?
Ambassador McCallum obviously informed the government that there would have been a press conference, but I disagree with any kind of characterization that there was some kind of coordinated effort here to introduce confusion into the public domain. Of course, that would not be helpful, and the Prime Minister stated as much.
Okay, but sorry, Mr. Mendicino, but just hold on. I just got to ask you, if you admit that the government then sanctioned that event, but that Mr. McCallum then went rogue at that one event, now, you admit then that he went rogue. Why didn't you fire him then? If he was offside then, why was your government still defending him and standing by an ambassador who now you've just admitted went rogue at that press conference?
Well, look, as I've said before, you have to take a look at the entirety of John McCallum's public service career, which is one that has been marked with distinction. There was another interview given, and obviously post that, the Prime Minister asked for his resignation. And as I said at the outset of my remarks, the opposition is going to want to fixate on Mr. McCallum. Our government knows that the way that we are going to secure the release of these two Canadians is to continue engaging diplomatically. Minister Freeland and the Prime Minister have been working the phone. I'm sorry if I could just finish the sentence, Michelle, and then I know that you'll retort. Minister Freeland has been working the phones, as has the Prime Minister. These are countries who have come to our side. And, Evan, I would say Canada knows what it's doing. Our government knows what it's doing when it comes to securing the release from other regimes. We've secured the release of Professor Hoodfar from Iran. We secured the release of Pastor Lim when it came to North Korea. And we're not going to get anywhere by having this kind of partisanship.
Sorry, Mr. Mendicino, there's accountability. Go ahead.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I mean, this is not about fixating on McCallum. This is a lapse of judgment on behalf of the Prime Minister of Canada. I mean, what I speculate happened is that McCallum was talking to cabinet ministers either at their cabinet retreat over the last few months, and he just ran his mouth off. So, but unfortunately, he was the voice of the government. That was his role as ambassador. So now, both the Americans and the Chinese know what the position of the government is. It's a disaster for people who are being held. And you know, like, listen to the arrogance in the comments of a Liberal here to question, you know, of course the opposition is going to take issue with this, because this was a massive lapse in judgment on behalf of the Prime Minister. I don't know how the government gets out of this at this point in time. They've put their cards completely on the table. They've, you know, basically interfered in the independence of our judiciary. And, you know, Marco, like, sometimes when you're holding water for the government, you just need to be contrite in this, and to come after the opposition parties for holding the government to account. And it's just the arrogance of this. It's both the ignorance and the arrogance that shows why your government needs to go. It's
Mr. Mendicino, Michelle Rempel asked a genuine question I'd like an answer to. Was John McCallum, twice now, both in Vancouver and Toronto, he repeated these remarks? Now, we all know that your government's fired him because you now say it was inappropriate. But did he tip Canada's hand? Is that really what the Chinese want to know? That this is the Canadian position? Because we don't know who to trust. Do you trust what your ambassador says? Do we trust what you say? Honestly, it's a fair question. Did he reveal what Canada is really thinking behind the scenes?
Of course not, and I've said that now on a number of occasions, and notwithstanding what the opposition may say, it's just not true and it is irresponsible. But when it comes to the rule of law, look, Evan, I've worked on extradition matters and I've worked on extradition appeals. This is a government that believes in the independence of the judiciary. This hearing with regards to Ms. Meng will be held in a totally unbiased and fair and transparent manner.
But how can that happen now?
And continuing, and that is why we have the United States. That is why we have the United States and the United Kingdom who have. That is why we have had the United States and the United Kingdom come on board. And there's an important and crucial point here. In both of those instances, the United States, there's a Republican government. In the United Kingdom, there is a conservative government. They have seen fit to look over the partisanship that sometimes occurs in the hustle and bustle of day-to-day politics. And what I'm saying is that they have overlooked whatever ideological political differences that may exist between the political spectrum and saw fit to what that's not spin, Michelle. You have countries who are supporting Canada when it comes to securing the release of these two individuals.
Okay, hang on. I just want to sort this out. First of all, I'm not sure what your point is, that there's a conservative or Republicans that are supporting what you're now saying should be a justice issue. So I'm not sure if this is a political process. But going back to this, Michelle Rempel, Marco Mendicino is arguing that the opposition is politicizing something. My question is, do you believe that now having to fire the ambassador puts the lives of Canadians in jail more in jeopardy? And what does it do for Canada's position, which has been to try to get them out?
Well, absolutely. And I mean, it's not just me saying this. It's every journalist that's writing about this issue today has made that point. And going back to the question of the American government, I mean, frankly, I don't understand where Marco was going with his spin, but the American government now must be looking at us and going, our partner to the north can't govern. We are interfering in the independence of our judiciary. Nobody has seen a bungle of foreign policy like this in a generation. This is really bad, and it has serious implications for lives that are at stake.
You should read the statement of Secretary Pompeo.
It's very bad.
If you read the Secretary of State's statement from the United States,
the United
Michelle,
States
you would
is
see
not lauding Justin Trudeau on this
unequivocal
matter.
confidence
There is no way that the American government has any faith in us anymore.
I have 10 seconds, but Mr. Mendicino, are you arguing that firing the ambassador to China like this actually helps Canada's position internationally? Is that actually the case? You believe this actually enhances Canada's credibility on the world stage?
What doesn't help is fixating on the events of the last few days. What does help is allowing the Foreign Service, the Foreign Minister, and the Prime Minister to continuing engaging diplomatically with some of the most influential countries in the world who share our values when it comes to the rule of law and who have expressed unequivocal confidence in our ability to conduct rule of law proceedings like the extradition hearing. And you know, Michelle, you can continue to interrupt, but that's not the way we conduct diplomacy here.
Nobody wants to listen to this. We want our Canadians back.
I gotta leave it there. Obviously, tense mornings here, but the ambassador to China now fired. Marco Mendicino, Michelle Rempel, I appreciate both of you coming in.